You and I have been talking about the TPP in the context of a big fight that was going to happen, and we have been talking about this for at least 4 or 5 months in the context of the fight that was going to happen. And the one thing where we were going to see a dynamic, and I have to say, kudos to both of us, because the dynamic is exactly playing out as how we've been saying it's going to over the past 5 or 6 months. The TPP, of course, is something that on this program we've been talking about for literally a couple of years at least, maybe more. But this fight now is on. And last night, President Obama was at a speech in Washington, D.C., gave a speech for Organizing for Action Summit in Washington, D.C. And basically, I mean, you know, in not so many words, but people said it was barely veiled, taking shots at Elizabeth Warren, at Bernie Sanders, and frankly, the progressive base by suggesting that critique of the TPP is akin to critique of Obamacare death panels.
Wow. I didn't know that last part. That's what happens when you're traveling for a day or two here or there. I knew the rest of it. I didn't know that he did the death panel thing. Well, that's silly. I understand why he's doing it, because this thing could fail. It could be beaten, and he's doing what I would argue, if I were on his side, I mean, I'll argue objectively, is smart. You really do have to go after the opposition. It's what I've advocated he do many more times when he was on our side on stuff. So politically, it makes sense in terms of this is the position he's taken, and you have to sort of try to discredit your opposition in that way. Politically, in terms of what he's doing in this final couple of years of his presidency, again, just supporting this thing makes no sense to me. And it's not to say that a trade deal of some sort couldn't have been drawn up where Congress would have a chance to look it over and the appropriate protections would be in there and might make some sense. But this isn't it. And fast track is even worse, quite frankly. Fast track is doesn't obviously give Congress an opportunity to get involved in the process. So that I guess he's doing what people do that are in a corner. Because Elizabeth Warren has a lot of press attention right now. Bernie Sanders certainly has a strong following for the way he speaks about things. I know my home state senator here, Sherrod Brown, who's got some charisma, has been this has been his issue for years. This has been the key issue that I've often told people is why Sherrod Brown, a very, very, very progressive guy, to the left of most of your senators on the coast, wins here in Ohio. Because every single time he takes on trade. And every single time he wins white working class voters. It's gonna it's gonna also I don't want to harp on this for too long here, but what's gonna play out interestingly here is in the Senate races coming up, not just sort of the presidential sweepstakes and other things going on, but our current senator here in Ohio, who's considered one of the 5 or 6 potentially vulnerable, Rob Portman, was Bush's trade guy, top trade guy. And our former governor here and congressman, Ted Strickland, is running against the pact. He voted against NAFTA when he was in Congress, and he's against this. Watch for that to play out interestingly. I'm sort of interested to see what happens in some other states that have important races that are kind of Midwestern and that kind of thing. So it is. I think right now, obviously, we've got a lot of opposition on the left. But there seems to be some bubbling and building opposition on the right. It's got these guys that are playing to the far evangelical base that are people that are certainly suspicious of any kind of foreign treaty of any sort, often for the wrong reasons, here and there for the right reasons. Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, all, Lindsey Graham, although he'll still be for the trade deal. That's what he lives and dies for. But the other three, and I don't know if I'm missing anybody else who's in this race at this point, because, if George Pataki could get in, my cat could get in. So no limit on entries to the Republican race.
Well, I want to get to let's get to how the presidential politics play on this in a minute. But because you raise Sherrod Brown, I want to give you a quote from Sherrod Brown, which just drives me nuts. And this is a quote from Sherrod Brown in a piece from last night at, I don't know, I guess it was posted around 11 p.m. on Huffington Post. Sherrod Brown, this is a quote. I think if you could get my colleagues to be honest on the Democratic side with you, and I think you can mostly, they will say they've been talked to, approached, lobbied, and maybe cajoled by more cabinet members on this issue than any issue since Barack Obama has been president. That's just sad, he added. Now, he was talking about, he said, I wish they put the same effort into minimum wage. I wish they put the same effort into Medicare at 55. Going back to the Affordable Care Act now, remember, right? We couldn't get Joe Lieberman. I wish they put the same effort into consumer strengthening on Dodd-Frank. And, even, Casey, Bob Casey, had this to say.
He's kind of a populist here and there. Is he against this thing?
He added, he thought it would be better if the administration took that intensity to lobby folks on trade and applied it to Democrats' effort to focus on the middle class. My God, we should be spending our time on that, not having the debate we're having. And
that is so unbelievably frustrating, isn't it?
It is.
That's what I was saying. The stuff he's doing right now, the lobbying, I guess, is additional to sort of the way he's calling out his opposition. Everything he's doing on this thing, it seems to be the kind of stuff that we wanted forever. And yeah, I think had he gone after Joe Lieberman in the fashion he just went after Elizabeth Warren, maybe a lot of things would be different. Certainly, I think we'd have a better chance of having gotten, if not either the public option, Medicare. I mean, obviously they would have had to not trade it away in the beginning, but Medicare from 55. One of these things that would have made the Affordable Care Act, which I think for the first time now has majority numbers of popularity as more people are on it, are like, wow, it's free, and I don't have to go to a death panel, and my health care is taken care of. It would have been no majority popular back then. It wouldn't be able to be demonized like it was. It's just, I know, it just makes you shake your head just one more time. What's new, right?
All right. Well, so this is where we're at this point. Last night, the House Ways and Means Committee passed its version of trade legislation. We should say nobody's voting on the actual bill. They're voting on the trade authority to basically say to the president, and not just this president, really, any president out for the next 6 years, which could theoretically be 2 other presidents in addition to this one, right? I mean, theoretically. That you have the authority to go ahead and negotiate this, bring it to the Congress, and get a quick up or down vote that cannot that basically is voted upon, and like no other legislation is voted upon. The House Ways and Means Committee passed its version last night, and there was a couple of Democrats that crossed the aisle apparently to support it, but these are going to be the most corporate one would imagine.
I thought so. Let me ask this quickly because maybe you can answer this for me, Sam, being smarter than I am. I thought Ron Wyden was a progressive guy.
Well, people forget Ron Wyden. Now, I'm not talking about the Senate. The Senate Finance Committee did the same thing, and so you have both the House and the Senate now. At least the committees have passed bills that President Obama wants, and then it's got to go obviously to the floor in both of those both the Senate and the House. Look, Ron Wyden is very good on things like civil liberties. Part of it is a function, I think, that he's from Oregon, and there's probably some very big.
That's a good point.
There's some very big, probably dollar supporters who are involved in the shipping trade, and maybe there's some implications there. He's probably very pro-trade because of that. But also, this is a guy, remember.
It's also, though, a decent-sized union state, and he's hurting unions by doing it. I would think they'd have something to say about that.
That's true, too. But you got to remember, this is the guy who also struck that deal at one point with Paul Ryan on Medicare, and he had to back off it at one point. Now, we may be going back 4 or 5 years now.
But we don't forget things like that. You are right, and I shouldn't have. I should have been thinking about that. guess the dude likes making bad deals. I don't know. Maybe he can run for president next.
Indeed. And I think, the question is, how isolated is he going to be in the Senate? And the question is, in the House, how much pain is there going to be for Democrats? How difficult is it going to be for Democrats to support this in the House? And will there be enough of a lack of support from Democrats to kill it? And then the other question is...
The problem, though, is the lack of support from Republicans, and how big that is, I think, is the bigger question.
Yes.
Because I think we have to right away know that there's 15 to 25 of the new Dem types in the House who are going to vote for this thing. Blue dog new Dems. I can tell you who they are. Jim Cooper, Ron Kind, these kinds of people who are going to do it. So the question then becomes, do we have the Republican votes to offset that? It seems to me.
Yeah, and this is I don't know. This seems to me to be just a huge fight. I mean, look, and here's the thing. We don't even know, really. I mean, we're not going to feel the implications of this deal for 15, 20 years, maybe 10 years. We have no idea what the implications are going to be because we don't even know what's in it.